Hello, and welcome to the 15th episode of the LampLighters podcast. I'm Jaylen Corver, she's Lauren Smith, and Zach is off this week. On this episode, a possible Seattle expansion team, Chuck being pesky again leads to another one-game suspension, and a Russia-less 2018 Winter Olympics. All that and more on this episode of the LampLighters podcast. Well, Lauren, let's get right into things here. News coming out of the NHL today from Gary Bettman that Seattle possibly could get an expansion team in the next few years here. News coming out of Seattle, of course, late last week, early this week, that they're finally going to renovate their arena, add some more seats, be able to support more people, and finally be able to have a rink in there. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's kind of seen it coming. I think Seattle's been thrown around for so long right now that I wouldn't be surprised. Especially,
for sure. I think
Western Conference has one fewer team still than the Eastern Conference, so that would finally balance out the two conferences, bring you to a 32-team league. So
you'd have to move a team out of the Pacific to the Central, probably being, I guess. Because, you'd have the 5 teams that are in the Pacific Division, or the Pacific time zone. You wouldn't want to move them over.
No.
That kind of leaves Vegas, Arizona, Calgary, Edmonton. You're not going to split up Calgary and Edmonton.
No.
So, probably be Arizona moving over. But, that's things that they can worry about when Seattle eventually comes into the league.
Yeah. Well, and there's still the question of, does Seattle get an expansion team, or is Arizona going to move?
For sure. Definitely looks like Seattle's been given the opportunity to get an expansion team. News coming out today that the confirmed expansion fee for Seattle would be $650 million, which is $150 million more than what Vegas would have paid to get their team. So obviously a little more there. NHL being a little greedy, but it is what it is. Seattle also getting the go-ahead to do a season ticket drive similar to what Vegas did a couple years ago to see what kind of interest is out there in Seattle for possibly getting a team.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. 'Cause, I mean, it's been thrown around so much. We have to look. I mean, they have the Mariners. They've got the Seahawks in there. And then you also have, what's their NFL team?
The Seahawks?
Oh, the Seahawks, yeah. Never mind, what's the WHL team? That's what I was thinking.
The T-Birds, the Thunderbirds.
Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
So, they're both birds. I was like...
That's true. You gotta wonder if Seattle...
I thought that was the NFL. I'm like, no, that's gotta be the WHL. It's a bird.
Nope. They're definitely the Seahawks down in Seattle there. Obviously, Seattle would probably think about coming up with some sort of name like that for their NHL team, I would think. Keeping along with the birds of some sort.
Sure. Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see if they can, support a pro NHL team or pro hockey team on top of all of those other sports teams. I'm sure they have the population base, but the reality is, it ends up getting costly to support that many different teams. But there seems to be a desire for it, for sure.
I think it'll be interesting, too, if they do get a team. Vancouver will almost have like a really close rival to them as well. Somewhere that's geographically really close to them. They haven't really had a team against them in BC, of course. Nothing else being that big. But with Seattle being like right there, I think that could create some interesting rivalries in the division and in the league for sure.
It could. It'll be interesting. Yeah, it's all going to be about the fact that they're in the same division, playing each other that often. That's how you really build most rivalries. It'd be nice to see them have a rivalry with someone other than the Albertan teams, because other than the Albertan teams, it's Boston. I don't know, there's not really a lot of games where you look at the Canucks and go, I want to see that game because of the hatred between the teams. So
The other ones that kind of come to mind when I think of rivals for Vancouver would be, Boston, kind of. Not really.
I think it's
Chicago.
just the bitterness from
Chicago,
back in the
back
2011
when they
Cup.
were... Yeah, Chicago would be another one from that
Yeah.
same kind of area. I've always thought they've kind of had maybe a little bit of a rivalry with Colorado. Maybe that's more stemming from the whole Todd Bertuzzi incident.
I think that's
But
probably more from the Bertuzzi incident.
yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, no one really has been close to them, so they haven't really had a huge rival, like, just on their own. And I think that
Yeah.
could create some good hockey games there between the two teams.
Yeah, well, I mean, rivalries are like half of the fun when you're watching a hockey team. Like, I always love when I get to watch the Islanders play the Rangers because Battle of New York, and it's such a like entrenched thing in teams when you get those really good rivalries going. So
For sure. And I mean, as much as Edmonton's had Calgary's number these days, it's always interesting. I'm always hyped for those games when they come up. And it's always been fun to watch. And yeah, should be good.
yeah,
Should be good indeed. Glad to see another team coming into the NHL.
hopefully.
Hopefully. Should be good. Speaking on teams that possibly could come in or move, a little bit of news coming out of Carolina and their team today from the Hurricanes. Potential sale going to a guy based out of Dallas by the name of... Oh, I just had it here. Oh, that's real embarrassing. Tom Dundon. That's his name. Approval to... He just got to get league approval. But basically the terms of the sale are agreed upon, that Carolina will be sold to him. One of the clauses in the deal, of course, is that he will keep the Carolina Hurricanes in North Carolina.
For now.
For now. I mean, not sure how that long will last. Not sure how solid of a hockey market they are, but kind of intriguing that he's from Dallas and that's from Texas, and maybe, especially with the rumors coming from Houston in the past couple months or so, that they're possibly looking at an NHL team, that maybe he'd want to move him over there.
Yeah.
Although, not sure how much better they do in Houston compared to Raleigh.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up what the values are currently for the NHL, according to Forbes, but let's see where Carolina sits. 27th in the league.
Ooh. At a value of?
$370 million.
Who's last? Who's below
Arizona.
them yet? Oh, yeah, of course.
Arizona's last. Above that, you have Florida Panthers at 30 with $305 million. The Blue Jackets actually are 29th with $315 million. And then the Sabres are 28th with $350 million. And actually, where are the Golden Knights? Golden Knights are 14th in the league already.
Really?
Yep, $500 million.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the expansion fee that they paid for him, right?
Yeah. And then top of the Forbes list this year is the Rangers again. They're worth $1.5 billion, followed by Toronto, and then Montreal are the top three.
That definitely makes sense. The biggest hockey markets.
Yeah.
Most valuable teams, for sure.
Yeah, your top five are all original six teams. Goes Rangers, Leafs, Habs, Blackhawks, and then the Bruins. Even the Red Wings are at 9th. So, kind of your more established hockey markets are pretty far up there.
Oh, yeah. No, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Carolina, and eventually, relocation has always been an interesting topic in the NHL with Carolina and other teams that aren't doing so well in their markets, like Florida and Arizona, and you have to end up seeing where they'll end up. Kansas City.
Florida's a big one because their owner in the past has said it's not actually a sustainable market as of right now. Like, eventually the money will run out if they're there. The ticket sales just aren't there to offset the costs of everything. So,
Right. So they'll probably have to move, whether they look at possibly going to Quebec City, Kansas City, maybe back to Hartford. You never
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So I think
Obviously, they
that,
need to get out of that market, though, I think.
yeah, for sure, Florida, and I mean, I think Florida's hockey fans go to Tampa, let's be honest.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're close enough that they could easily just transfer over. I mean, maybe there's a bit of a rivalry there. It's kind of like maybe a lesser way of saying, "Oh, Calgary's going to move, so I'm going to go cheer for Edmonton." I don't think I could ever do that, but
No,
I
but I
think
think Tampa was in there, weren't they, before Florida?
yes, yeah. Tampa had a team before Florida.
And I think, realistically, I mean, most Florida games, half of the people there are there for the other team.
Very true. Very, very true. When it's that cheap to go down there, there was once a story of a guy who could buy season tickets and fly to Florida cheaper than going to like it's not. I can't remember what he compared it to, but it was nuts. And like any game he didn't go to, he just sold off or whatever he needed to do,
Yeah.
and just made a trip out of it a couple times. And it's just ridiculous how cheap it is down there. But obviously, that's why these teams are floundering. And you think with a little bit cheaper prices that people would go, but obviously it's not the case.
No.
It's too warm down there. Hockey just doesn't work.
Well, it does in some of the markets, which is the weird thing, because you wouldn't expect hockey to work in Dallas. Dallas is worth more than the Flames or the Sens.
Really?
Yeah, Dallas
That's shocking.
is 13th in the league. They're right below the Oilers. So
That's definitely surprising for sure. A team like that doing well.
Well, I mean, they have the star power between, like, I think Sagan's a...
Star power. Did you?
Eh.
Did you?
Like,
Boo.
but I mean, you look, I think Sagan's a great ambassador for the team down there. I think whether people like him or not, I think he brings a lot of life to that team. And then having Jamie Benn, of course.
Yeah, two really good guys. Two definitely underrated guys in the NHL. Both very skilled.
I don't know how underrated Tyler Seguin is.
As in, you say he's properly rated or he's overrated?
I think he's pretty properly rated. Like, people bring him up all the time, and, like, I don't know, I don't think that he's underrated.
I feel like maybe not underrated, he's just almost forgotten about sometimes. Like, you're talking about top players in the league, and it's like, oh, right, yeah, I forgot about this guy. I forgot about Sagan. He's one of the top guys I think that I would forget about.
I guess I've never forgotten about him. Like, I've always thought of him. There are other players I find that we forget about more often, but I think Jamie Benn used to fall into that category more than he does now.
He's kind of fallen off a bit. That's what you're saying?
No, I think that it's just in the past, he was kind of the guy that when players were asked who was the most underrated player, a lot of the players would say Jamie Benn, but I think with Sagan going to Dallas, it's brought the attention there, and now people talk about Jamie Benn. So.
For sure. Other topics we want to talk about. Let's talk about Matthew Tkachuk for a little bit here.
Okay.
Good old Matthew Tkachuk, pesky little guy playing for the Calgary Flames. Getting in some trouble recently with the NHL. Of course, a couple weeks ago, suspended one game for causing that altercation as the guy from Detroit was leaving the ice and kind of gave him a little tap on the back of the legs and prompted the guy to come out and start a line brawl. Suspended one game for that, of course. And then last night, as he was sitting on the bench and there was a bit of a scrum right in front of the bench, he reached over and gave a little jab to a Toronto player. And, of course, the cameras caught it. NHL saw it and suspended another game. So he's not playing tonight against Montreal.
Yeah, I mean, the second one I don't have much sympathy for. Purely because it's as simple as you're on the bench. Don't do it.
Don't get involved. Yeah, for sure.
Like, The other one, I don't really consider, like, was it the Detroit one?
Yeah.
Yeah. That, and I'm like, that was a bad suspension. Like, he didn't really go after the guy. It was a tap, and about as much as what you see the other guys giving each other. But, no, if you're on the bench, come on, you gotta know better than that. Like, it's not that hard to not do that, so...
For sure. And as much as I like the guy, I think both one-game suspensions were deserved. He was obviously trying to start something with the Detroit guy, tapping him on the back as he was leaving. I mean, maybe like the slash definitely wasn't worth like the one game, but the fact that he was trying to start something, I think definitely the league wanted to put a stop to that. So I think one game there was warranted. And then yeah, like you said, don't be jabbing people while you're on the bench. You're not in the play, so don't be doing that kind of stuff. I love the guy. I love the.
You're going after, because it was Matt Martin that he did that too. I mean,
yeah.
Are you doing that if you're out on the ice with Matt Martin? Like,
you don't want him at.
Yeah, like that's the reality is, are you, like, it also looks bad on him, because it's like, well, it's one of the known fighters in the league. You're poking him from the bench.
Yeah, don't be egging on the giant there, because
yeah. Well, and I think
like
to me it just looks bad because it looks like, you want to get under the guy's skin, but not when you can actually get hit. No, you can actually be retaliated against. You did it when you were on the bench.
For sure, it's definitely a wimp move kind of thing there. Like, oh hey, I'm gonna jab you from the safety of my bench here, and
yeah.
Against one of the guys like that. I love the guy. I love what he brings to the team. I love his tenacity, but sometimes he takes a little too far, and I think he needs to keep that in check a bit. So it should be interesting.
You don't want to see him really establish a reputation for that being an issue, and seeing it become a repeat offender sort of thing. Because I mean, long term, that just leads to more problems because you're more likely to get suspended or fined. Your suspensions and fines will be worse. So,
yeah, you definitely need to keep that in check, or you're gonna start getting some more than just one game suspensions for little things like that.
Yeah,
league wants to curb that out as soon as they can. Let's talk about the other giant news coming out of the NHL and the hockey world this week. Russia being banned from the 2018 Winter Olympics. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's the whole doping scandal. It's been going on for a while. I don't think that it's hugely shocking. I think that, maybe if the NHL were still going, that may be a different story. Because, you have enough Russian players that are over in North America. They might have let hockey stay in, because so many of your top players aren't in Russia anymore.
Right.
But I think the more interesting thing being Canadian will be to see the impact of that on Team Canada, because a huge portion of Team Canada that was listed were KHL players. And there is a clause in their contracts, I believe, that will allow them to play for Canada, but it's the KHL and they might not have a job to come back to. So. Right.
Has the KHL actually said now that they're not going to go? They haven't officially boycotted it, I don't think. They haven't said that they're not going to let the other nations' team players go, have they?
Well, it's in their so it's the same as with the WHL, where our imports can still go. The KHL, North American, or their import players essentially could still go if they aren't Russian, but it's the KHL, it's not the NHL. Your contract may just be done.
Yeah, you never know over there.
And, there are stories where, you sign for a certain amount, you don't necessarily get paid that amount. It's the money just shows up. So the right amount of money, if you decide to go to the Olympics, may just not show up anymore.
Yeah, I've definitely heard stories like that, too, of people not getting paid different amounts, and sketchy money where it's coming from, so... definitely a different league over there for sure. I think it'll be interesting to see what actually happens with all that. What Russian players will actually players and Olympians will actually come out and compete under the Olympic flag. I think that'll be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I saw someone suggest today that if they're going to come out under the Olympic flag, that they should all just come out in Hartford Whaler gear and that kind of stuff, and then play like Brass Bonanza as their national anthem. Like, oh man, that'd be real good.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but yeah, I'm shocked that from the Winter Olympics that they banned Russia still.
Yeah, it's the thing though. Like, with all these people doping, and you're not sure who's actually been faking it or who's telling the truth that they haven't been doping, and in a way, just it sucks for a lot of people, but you gotta just stamp that out and make a statement, I think, as well.
Well, I think they're making an example out of Russia, because Russia's like such a powerhouse in the Olympics that the whole point of them doing this is essentially, we're willing to do this to Russia at like the Winter Olympics, where, let's be honest, Russia's involved in so many rivalry matches across different sports. We're willing to do this to this country that brings in, like, you have to think about how many more views you get because of having Russia in the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
That they're willing to go, well, kibosh Russia being in this. Any country is fair game.
Yeah, exactly. If they're gonna knock out a big player like that of Russia, who dominates sports like cross-country skiing, anything, or biathlon, those kind of sports.
Skating.
Yeah, figure skating is another big one too.
Even hockey. Like, let's be honest. Which teams are going to be fun to watch at this Olympics? You don't have Russia playing Canada or the USA, which is one of the best things in international hockey, is watching those Canada-Russia games. I'm more excited to watch Canada-Russia than Canada-USA. So you've taken out like a huge rivalry portion of the Olympics. I guess you'll have a B-rated version of Canada-USA with not your top players.
Definitely not as yeah, not
and
sure.
And even Latvia. Latvia will be interesting because their team is a KHL team.
Right.
So
I
what's
think
going to happen
also,
with that?
For sure. I think also in a way though, I think this Olympics it'll be a lot more, I don't know what the right word is. It'll be definitely more open, and definitely like setting the story up for like an underdog story. Totally. You could have a team come out of nowhere and like upset the whole thing. Maybe
I'd like to see the Czech Republic.
Yeah, something like that. Wouldn't it be cool to see someone like South Korea just come out of nowhere, seeing that all of these teams are have sending their B teams pretty much, and all of a sudden they win a couple fluke games out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they're like in the final. Like, that would be crazy good for like all of Asia hockey and all of that. How the NHL is trying to get over there.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, I mean, not all of these teams these countries are sending their B team. Because realistically, like, how many Czech players are there in the NHL?
Not too many. The majority of their team would be made up from their league, right? The Czech league.
Yeah. So they'd be making their team up from the Czech league. Slovakia, you've got a KHL team in Slovakia. Mm-hmm. So that's realistically what the KHL decides to do. I mean, the only way that it doesn't come back to bite like Latvia and Slovakia is it could just be they go, well, we aren't Russian, so we're going, and they have their full team. But even with that, I mean, you still have the Swedish league that'll be going, the Finnish league, like. I think there's enough dominant European teams. I don't know that it'll be at South Korea, but I think it could be a more underrated European country.
Yeah, it would be someone like you said, like Czechoslovakia or the Czech Republic, I mean, and someone like
What
that.
year are we in, Jay?
Sorry, it's 2017. It'll be 2018 at those Olympics. Um, I don't know. I don't know if you ever saw that documentary on Netflix called Icarus about the whole Russian doping scandal. That
No,
was
I didn't see.
one of the best documentaries I think I've ever seen. That was really interesting to see how that goes, and they have a guy on there that basically was like one of the scientists behind the whole way of how they were doping, and it basically like it reveals everything what happened through their whole doping scandal. I think it was really interesting, and I definitely would recommend giving that a watch.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, it's a completely different world over in Russia, which, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it always amuses me when, you know, North Americans try to apply our standards and values to Russia, because it's different.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, especially I think tons of Russian players in North America get criticism for, like, supporting Putin, and probably even more so with all the doping stuff that's come out, but I think the reality is, it's just different. You grow up differently there. You don't grow up with the free market capitalist values. It's a different value system. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think, you see a lot of times, I think North Americans, especially when it comes to hockey, different stuff, you try to apply how we view that stuff to another country. That being said, it's still not okay to do it, but, I mean, you just trust the government when they say that it'll be okay if you do the drugs, if you don't even necessarily know that you're doing, like, taking steroids or whatever.
Right, you're just doing what they're telling you to do, and
Yeah.
as far as you know, it's okay, but maybe it's not, and it's definitely iffy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else we need to talk about today, Lauren?
Montreal's been doing well lately.
Oh yeah, ever since
Yeah.
our Trash Zach episode, I think. Hey.
Yeah. They're currently 5-4-1 in the last 10 games.
What have they won?
But
5 in a row? 4? They've won.
they just lost the last game. So,
Oh,
but
okay.
going into that, I think that it was 5 or 6 in a row.
Before this, they had won. They'd won 5 of their past 6 games.
Yeah.
They had won 5 in a row before that, including a 10-1 drubbing of the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah.
So evidently, as it proves, anytime we talk about somebody or trash somebody or bring them up, the opposite always happens in the following week. So I think
Yeah.
it's time. I think it's time we talk up Montreal and how well they've been playing. Carey Price has been phenomenal as of late. He's been one of the
Yeah.
best goalies in the NHL, right back to his normal self, allowing just over 1 goal a game. I think these past couple
I
games.
think something like that. Yeah, he's been on fire lately.
Yeah, I think it was like a .975 save percentage, like ridiculous numbers.
Especially considering how he started the season.
Yeah, it's good to see him come back. I mean, you always have to root for the guy. He's seems like a pretty stand-up guy, good Canadian boy. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and I mean, that's a huge contributing factor right now to the Habs turning it around.
yeah. I mean, you win one game and then you win another, and then your confidence kind of comes back up. You're starting to put pucks more back into the net. I mean, look at the Lethbridge Hurricanes, even too. They had lost 8 in a row, come
Yeah.
out, win a game against one of the top teams in the West, 10-4, get a whole bunch of goals, and now they've won 7 of their past 8 games. So
Yeah.
it's amazing what a little bit of puck luck and what a little bit of confidence will do for a team.
Yeah, and I mean, Montreal has been throwing so many pucks at the net that your law of averages eventually comes into play. Because they had one of the highest Corsies in the league, and were one of the worst scoring teams in the league. So, yeah, it's
It was
definitely
just a
turned
matter
around
of
for
time.
them. Yeah. And I mean, that and the combination of the fact that I think early in the season, I don't know how much their defense was performing, and just, subpar goaltending for a little while there, which did not help them.
Mm-hmm. Well, it didn't help that Price was injured, and I mean, Lindgren was doing well, and then he kind of fell off a bit. Carey Price came back, and he still wasn't as 100% himself, so... No, it's good to see them doing well, and I really hope they keep doing well. Yes, definitely. Yeah. I think that pretty much hit all of our spots that we were scheduled to talk about today. Lauren, I think you had an interesting story that you wanted to wrap up the show with.
Yeah, well, instead of the trivia shootout, we'll do this. So, do you guys, in the NHL, in regular season games, what's the record for the most saves made by a goalie, do you think?
In one game?
In a single game.
We're talking regular season? Regular season.
Yeah.
Didn't someone from the Oilers set that a couple years ago, I think, didn't he? Around 60 saves?
The record is 80 saves made by Sam Lopresti. That was back on March 4th of 1941.
Oh, yeah, okay. Way before my time.
So, that's the NHL regular season record is 80. Now, going to the IHL, or the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Because it's not on the NHL website, but this is still an NHL game. Mm-hmm. So in 1936, this is the actual record for the most saves in any game in the NHL, and this is a postseason game. How many do you think it is?
The record for the most saves in a postseason game?
Yeah.
Or in, like, any game in general?
In any game. Well, in any NHL game.
It's got to be, like, over 100. I'm going to say, like, 127.
92.
Oh, darn it. Way over.
It was a game between the Detroit Red Wings and the Montreal Maroons. The game went to 6 overtime periods.
The longest game in history.
Yep, the Red Wings scored at 2:25 in the morning. And Normie Eugene Smith earned a shutout with 92 saves.
Holy cow. That's nuts.
Both NHL records, under 100 saves. This week, we go over to Finland. 16-year-old goalie. He made 100 saves.
100 saves. Is this like in the Finnish Elite League? Is that what this
is? It's in the Finnish, I think it's their under 18 league.
So probably the league right below that, right?
It's
right below the league.
It's like Junior B, Metis Q. It is a Finnish league. That was much I can gather.
Okay.
He faced, let me see. It was over 100 shots that he actually faced. So this goalie makes 100 saves and still loses the game.
What was the score?
5-0.
Oof.
But still.
No support from his team, yet made 100 saves.
No support from his team. 16-year-old kid in the Finnish league has stopped more pucks, or has a higher puck stopping record than either NHL record.
Wow. That's pretty crazy.
Yep.
Good for him. Maybe we'll see him in the NHL one day. You never know.
Yep, his name is Juuso Kopra. So, yeah, just a fun story about the fact that, it's pretty cool. So, who knows, maybe in that, what would it be, 2 years from now? 2020 draft?
See his name come up on the NHL board. Be pretty cool to see. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up our episode here. 15 episodes down and hopefully lots more to come. We thank you for listening and the continued support. It's been a lot of fun so far. Make sure you like and share our posts. We'd really appreciate that, getting our names out there. I'm Jaylen Corver, and on behalf of Lauren Smith and the absent Zach Hampton, wish you a good night. And Lauren?
Light that lamp.
Have a good night.